The objective of this exercise is to create a network divided into subnets by assigning dynamic IPs using DHCP and set up a DNS server that is used by the network. We start by inserting the various devices and linking them. In the first subnet, there are 2 PCs and 1 server. In the second subnet, there are 2 PCs. Then we start to configure the router interfaces on the subnets. Go into the configuration from the command line of the first router and insert the following commands. Enable configure terminal for entering the configuration mode, and then we configure the interface fast Ethernet 10. The IP address on this interface will be 192.168.1.1 with this subnet mask. Next, we need to type the no shutdown command for enabling the interface. We need to do the same for the second router. So enter the command line, type enable configure terminal, and then interface fast Ethernet 10, and finally this IP address 192.168.2.1 with the same subnet mask as before, and the not shutdown command for enabling the interface. Now we need to configure the interfaces in the dedicated network for the 2 routers. So open the command line of the first router and type these commands. Interface fast Ethernet 00, IP address 16.0.0.1 with this subnet mask. As always, type the command no shutdown for enabling the interface. Now we need to configure also the same interface on the second router. So interface fast Ethernet 00, IP address 16.0.0.2 with the same subnet mask. No shutdown. Now all the connection has turned green, so we need to configure the DHCP server. Open the interface of the server, go into configuration and set the default gateway and the DNS server. Go to the fast Ethernet configuration and insert the static IP address of this server and the subnet mask. Now go to the service sections and go to the DHCP. Now we need to create 2 pools for each subnet. The first pool has this name, network A, and this default gateway, which is the first router, the DNS server, which will be the server itself, the start IP address, which will be .1.3, the same subnet mask, and the second network will have this pool with this name. The default gateway this time will be the second router. The DNS server will be the server itself. The start IP address this time will be .2.2. The subnet mask is the same. Before starting the service, check if the server pool is completely zeroed. Insert 0 on all the fields. Now check on, and the DHCP will be enabled. Now we need to allow the packet forwarding between the 2 networks. We need to configure the routing. We can use the graphical interface or the command line. This time we use the command line. So open the command line of the first router and type these commands. Enable configure terminal as always, and then IP route, the IP of the other network, so .2.0, the subnet mask, and the IP of the second router. Now we need to do the same thing on the second router. So IP root.1.0, the subnet mask, and the IP of the first router. Now, to ensure that the DHCP requests are forwarded to the server, you must configure the IP helper address on both the routers. So open the command line of the first router, enter the interface fastEther 10, and type this command IP helper address .1.2. Do the same thing for the interface fastEther 00, IP helper address .1.2. Now we need to do the same commands on the second router. Interface fastEther 10, IP helper address with the same IP. Do the same thing for the interface fastEther 00. And now, if everything works, the IPs should be assigned dynamically using the DHCP. So click on a computer, go to the desktop and go to the IP configuration. Check DHCP, and if everything were successful, the IP address should be a valid IP for this network. Do the same thing for all the computers. Now let's configure the DNS service. DNS is used to resolve domains. Given a domain such as google.com, it will return an IP so that the hosts know which IP address to send the packets. So open the interface of the servers, go to Services and go to DNS. Here insert the domain on the name label. In this case it will be google.it and the address associated, which is the address of the server in this case. And click Add for adding the row to the table. Now check On for enabling the service. Close and go on one of the PCs, go to the web browser and type the domain. And click on Go. If everything went fine, you should see this page.